to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. So today we are going to be talking about Sonic, but not in this episode, as the title would indicate. That will be tonight. I'm going tonight to see a Dolby screening of Sonic the Hedgehog, and I think it is. If I'm Paramount, I'm annoyed. Because here's the thing, like, I don't think Sonic has really moved at all. Like, I don't think that Sonic has had fluctuation on its release date. I think it was just straight, whatever it was. Ambulance was supposed to come out months ago. Like, I believe that was a February movie, if I don't have it in front of me, because, I'm recording while I drive as usual. But I don't have it in front of me, but I'm fairly certain that it was a release that was meant to be in what's it called? In February. I want to say it was Valentine's Day or the week after weekend. But then it got delayed to April, which is kind of like this new thing that's happening where April's the first crowded month of the post-pandemic era, or the pandemic era, for movies. So it feels like they're kind of just dumping stuff into February that they think are going to do poorly. Like, Morbius got dumped in, so it's like, oh, well, Morbius lost however many percent this weekend. Like, how could we have known that Sonic the Hedgehog would have outperformed it? Like, yeah, well, I mean, obviously, anyone who knew this was going, like, regardless, Sonic was going to take a bite out of whatever came out the week before, but whatever. But now they moved Ambulance to the same weekend as Sonic, and I'm Paramount. I'm like, what the fuck? Because they lost all their IMAX screens. Like, yeah, Sonic keeps the Dolby, but Ambulance gets IMAX, and I don't think Ambulance necessarily needs IMAX. Nor do I think Ambulance really needs to exist, because, like I've said before, Ambulance kind of feels like a movie that was designed by a screenwriter who spent the pandemic playing a fuck ton of GTA Online, and was like, oh shit, let me write a screenplay about something that I did in this game, and then sell it as and then that way I can write it off as a business expense on my taxes, and then this happened, because I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, so he's going to rob a bank, and then they're gonna have a getaway through Los Angeles, and there's big over-the-top police chases, and I'm like, oh, this is just playing GTA. That's all this is, and it's just, I have very little interest in that. I'm probably not going to see it for a few weeks, if I see it at all, because this weekend I have, like, I think the big problem with reserving movies in advance becomes the fact that when you reserve movies, and why the fuck is there a car just abandoned with the lights on? That's weird. When you have A-list and you order movies in advance, you can only have 3 reservations at a time. So, yeah, you need to have, you need to, if you have an advanced ticket for something, you need to have it, like you can't do something else until that is cleared. So I only have one available thing right now, because Fantastic Beasts comes out next week, and Doctor Strange I have my ticket for already, to finish that up. Now look, I think obviously they would have preferred to have the IMAX screens too. Like, anytime any other movie comes out, it's always, on 3 formats. It's always, what's it called? Like, standard, then, IMAX, and at least in my theater, Dolby does have, like, IMAX Laser and 4DX and all of this other cool stuff, but we don't have those out here, so we're just going to, deal with, I think I'm seeing an IMAX 3D, the Doctor Strange, but I think that the Sonic one I'm going to tonight is Dolby, because that's the other thing, is that Ambulance is also taking one of the Dolby screenings in prime viewing slot, and I'm like, well, if I'm Paramount, I'm like, that's a little fucked up. Like, because they probably signed a contract for that. It is a little weird. Anyway, all that notwithstanding, I am seeing Sonic tonight. We're going to talk about the Dropout right now. So the Dropout has reached its final episode. And you can always tell it's a final episode of something like this because they have that black screen with white text that explains where are they now. And this episode has that. Where are they now in regards to Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny and all these other people, like Erica Chung and Tyler and So here's the thing: we do get, and it's not overtly explained. It is kind of subtle in this episode. That we do get an explanation as to why the fraud got to the point it did. Which, if you've listened to the past episodes, you know that it was a pretty big sticking point for me. Like, the fact that we don't know what caused we know what caused the fraud, but what was the intent of the fraud? Like, the fraud started because the technology didn't work, and they were on an accelerated timetable to get more money to fund the creation of not software, but the hardware, the physical Edison blood testing thing. We understand that. And I don't know if it's that she deluded herself in so much as she wanted to believe nothing was going on because she genuinely thought it was for the greater good. Like, oh, this is going to, like, we're going to fix, we're going to change lives, we're going to create this new technology, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, we're going to, and, like, I don't know if that was her deluding herself into believing that, because she genuinely thought, like, this is the goal of what we're doing, like we are here to change the world, and the medical industry is doing this, and she's rattling off talking points, like, we have to deal with regulation that the tech industry doesn't, and, people don't want to see us succeed, and they don't want to see us shake things up, and she's rattling these off to the attorney who no longer works for her, and she's like, the attorney is like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But it is such a great moment, and I think that, like, Amanda Seyfried did have a really great performance over the course of the show, not just in becoming Elizabeth Holmes, but also in, delivering the performance and making you believe. Because, like, to an extent, like, the way that Elizabeth is portrayed is kind of sympathetic. And I think I've said this before, where it's like, the show kind of doesn't want you to put aside the sexism while still indicting Elizabeth for what she did. Like, because here's the thing, the investigation happens because, the thing is, that's the thing, it's like, they don't absolve her, they don't do anything like that, they're very clear, like, she was wrong, she committed the fraud, she did all of this, and she should get whatever is coming to her. Like, she deserves it. That is something that is very abundantly clear from the show. But at the same time, it does not downplay the fact that she, the investigation was started over, pettiness, and, maybe there is and the thing is, too, because we're dealing with healthcare, like, it's not a good situation, because it led to a lot of very serious problems. When they talk about it in the final, like, black screen, white text on black screen, they're like, one person was told their baby was still going to be stillborn, and it wasn't. One person was incorrectly told they had cancer. One person was told they incorrectly had some other HIV. They got a false HIV positive. And it's like, that's awful. And I think there's some culpability for Walgreens in there, the way that this show portrays it. And I think that's the problem, that the show kind of portrays everyone as kind of being willfully ignorant to it. And at least, I think Sam Waterston and Kurtwood Smith also deserve some props for this show. They both also have very, very strong, very strong performances that, that kind of not carry the show, but are a nice little garnish on the side, where it's like, Kurtwood Smith playing, and that's the thing about Kurtwood Smith, is that he's not a good guy, but he's kind of like, I'm your attorney, I'm hired to represent you, that's what I'm here to do. I may not, and he says that, I think, in the episode before this, where he's like, I've been an attorney for members of the press, and I am a major supporter of the free press, but I work for you now, so we're gonna do what we need to do. And I think it's this kind of neutral, this neutrality that he has, where he's like, I'm not here to do this because I believe in you, I'm not here to do this because I believe in anyone else, I'm here to do this because you're paying me. I also think that, if there's one thing I would have done, one of the things that they do consistently over the course of this show is rallies. There are a lot of rallies to be what are we here for? And then it's there's a lot of parties and rallies and things like that, where it's everyone starts chanting something about Elizabeth to show everyone's with her. I would have done something to show Theranos losing that. We get a scene after she goes on and does that interview and just bombs the interview. We get that sequence where it's she's walking through and Kurtwood Smith, and I don't know the actress's name who plays the other attorney, but she has a great performance too, especially at the very end, where it's she's talking to Elizabeth and the last two people in the Theranos offices, and she's like, yeah, I don't work for you anymore, and it's you're not paying me, and she's like, you hurt people, and she's just going, and it's I was complicit in that, and I have to live with that, and it's this great, it's a great sequence, and she does such a great job there. Both of them in that scene. It's a two-hander, that scene. It's just so well done by both actresses. And, the two of them are trying to coach her through the interview. She bombs the interview, and then she comes back after the interview, and it's so how did I do? I'm like, yeah, you did okay, which it's complete bullshit. It didn't work. And I think that it's one of those things where it's as they're sitting there, they're okay, let me start sending my resumes around and see what's going on. And it's kind of, it's interesting to see how that, how that plays. And after that scene, we get this sequence where she's walking through and you see everyone kind of muttering, and you hear a lot of oh, we're fucked. All that kind of stuff. And it's cool and it works and all of that, but I think that one more meeting to drive home the new mood in Theranos would have done a lot. Let me see what else. I think that would have, helped drive home that a little bit better. It's a small thing, but it's just a little something I would have done to really make sure that the show is, to drive home that she has no one. And that's the thing, is we see the dissolution of her relationship with Sonny. And I don't think I've really sung Naveen Andrews' praises enough over the course of this. He is really great on this show. It's a shame that he hasn't gotten, that's the thing, is I'm thinking back, what else has he been in since Lost? I don't think he's been in too much else. Because he played Saeed on Lost, and I'm well, what else has he done since then? I don't think there's really too much else. And it's a shame, because he was great on Lost. It's a shame that he doesn't get as much work as he should. He was great in this show. What else is there? I think I mentioned... my big issue is the text at the end. It's I feel especially when you're dealing with a streamer, I'm curious as to what the delivery timetable is for episodes of a new show. Because the thing is, the final the ending of the show, at the end of all of these, there's always a where are they now kind of thing, and it goes through and it's Erica Chug now runs a non-business, Tyler and his grandfather have made up. They didn't really make up, but they made amends or something before his grandfather died. And there was one other, and then Sonny and Elizabeth, their final disposition. The ending doesn't tell us what Elizabeth's sentence was, because they say she went on trial, but sentencing hasn't been done yet. That is inaccurate. We have her sentenced. We know what she was sentenced to. She was sentenced to, I want to say, 2 years. Not a ton of time, but it wasn't like she was sentenced to jail time. I think she's presently in jail. And the thing is, it's like, that was either in January or March when that happened. The show began in March. Considering that it's not like they had to bring in Amanda Seyfried to, do something where it's like, you have to deal with actors' contracts or something, and it's just that, you're basically just changing a credit or fixing a typo in the credits. You're not doing anything substantial. It's a quick fix. Like, it's not a particularly strenuous thing to maintain the accuracy of. So it is a little confusing to me. And Sonny too. It's like Sonny was pending indictment, and the thing, it's like, well, no, Sonny has been indicted at this point. Like, his indictment has gone through, and he had his arraignment. And I feel like that's something else that's I think my other problem with the show is that they don't do enough to, there wasn't enough there to show the legal ramification for what they did. And they don't do enough to show you what they did that was illegal. Show, don't tell. Don't come up to me after the fact and be like, oh, so this is what they were doing. Show me. Because they don't show us what Elizabeth and Sonny were doing, or what involvement they had. It was a lot of oh, things are happening. And the show kind of attempts to give Elizabeth the plausible deniability that she claims to have, where it's like the entire plan was to pin the whole thing on Sonny. It's just kind of that's my problem. The show is watchable and the show is fine. There's nothing, tremendously terrible about the show to the point that it's unwatchable. The problem is the show doesn't have, what's it called? The show doesn't have the necessary, the show doesn't have the necessary, ending, or legal aspect to it to make it informative. So we'll wrap up there for today. So later today we have Sonic. Hopefully this weekend we have Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then there's one other thing. I forgot what it is though. But yeah, we'll be back with that. The Flash. So until then, have a great rest of your week.